Coming up on Tech News Today, is Hulu for sale? Couple of high-profile tweeters seem to think so. Also, LulzSec under arrest. Or is it? And Nokia's new awesome collector's edition phone. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, June 21st, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing service that gets you paid quickly and makes you look professional. Get started with a free package at FreshBooks.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And joining us from across the wide Sargasso Sea and the rest of the Atlantic.
The salmon pond.
As we call it, the salmon pond. Nate Lanxon, editor-in-chief Wired.co.uk.
You know there's probably very little salmon in that sea.
There, not anymore. We've
very little
fished the
salmon.
crap out of that sea.
It's only the big salmon are left, not these little ones.
Hey, Nate, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. Good to have you back.
It's great to be here, as always.
Things at Wired been going well, I assume?
They have been going powerfully well, yes. Very well. We have a very nice podcast at the moment. You should check it out.
Powerfully well. That's awesome.
I'll check it out right now during the show. So
Yeah. Iyaz, you take a look at that.
Sure, no problem.
We're going to start the show with some breaking news.
Whoa.
Wow, Jason,
Yeah, that's
Jason's
intense, huh?
That's Jason's beta version of our
It's
breaking
like
news.
little
graphic.
worms.
Yeah, it's only the beginning.
It's a gummy breaking news.
I know. The next one's not going to look so cute.
A couple of tweets from reporter Julia Borston at CNBC and Prita Tweets, or Anuprita Das at Wall Street Journal. Hulu is weighing whether to sell itself after a potential buyer approached it with an offer. Say sources, story to follow. Now, is Anuprita Das a reporter from the Wall Street Journal? Yeah, she certainly is. So, and Julia Borston, a lot of people know from CNBC. Sources tell me Hulu was approached with a buyout offer. No decisions have been made, in all caps. And then $ hashtags. I guess those are just stock symbols.
Yeah, that was a bunch of those.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, it's like, so somebody came up to Hulu saying, "Hey, do you want to sell?" They're like, "We hadn't thought about that, but maybe." Apparently, I mean, do you think this has anything to do with the fact that Comcast is involved with this, and maybe they want to get rid of this entirely? Or
well, yeah, since NBC had to give up their board seats, I imagine Comcast would like to just get rid of that tangle because there are certain restrictions on them put in place by the FCC while they are part owners of Hulu that would go away, I assume, if they weren't part owners of Hulu anymore.
But that's only one third of the entire company. I mean, there's about 4 partners, but there's 3 major ones. There's NBC, ABC, and News Corp, which owns Fox content. So, I mean, they would need all kinds of approval together because Hulu's a joint venture. It's not necessarily run by the same people, but the idea that they would sell right now seems a little strange. I mean, they've been figuring out their business plan for a while now.
Also, who would they sell to, potentially? At least Borstein over at CNBC said it wasn't Google, but didn't say who it was.
Not Google.
Right.
So
that leaves out
Google.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know who would buy it.
Right. I mean, just nothing is obvious is coming to me right now.
And the other thing is, if you think about how difficult it is for these companies that are related to the content companies to get the content, if you are not a part of that, if you're someone like Microsoft, to get these kinds of deals, although that'd be kind of cool for the Xbox, try to get all these deals in place seems really difficult.
Nate, do you have any ideas here? Because Netflix isn't going to buy it. They have their deals. They don't need a Hulu. CBS isn't going to buy it because CBS is kind of forging their own path, so they don't want to be involved in this. I can't imagine any single broadcaster would want to take it over from the others. It would make it harder to make deals.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew, and we don't even have Hulu here, so it's kind of a little difficult to have some kind of breaking insight on the matter. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about Google. It doesn't seem to be Google's bag. You know, Google seems to like getting users to create the things that it indexes rather than, you know, professional studios. So Google doesn't seem like a likely candidate to me, I guess. But
also, Google has YouTube, which has deals with studios in America anyway for movies. So that also doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, there's only like giant companies you could think of. It's like what, Facebook, Microsoft, Sony, maybe.
Facebook.
with Spotify.
All these rumors about Facebook wanting to integrate music and television, and Facebook starting their own movie rental service. Facebook's got some dough now. Maybe they say, "Look, you know what? We'd love to operate Hulu, and we'll make we'll make deals with all the broadcasters. We'll make this work."
It's possible. I mean, we'll
It's the only
find
one
out.
I think of that is even slightly.
They have
possible.
enough money; they probably could pull it off.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to another story from earlier today. Teenager Ryan Cleary of Wickford, Essex, has been arrested. He is being held in central London on suspicion of offenses under the Computer Misuse Act and Fraud Act. He is suspected to be a member of LulzSec and a former member of Anonymous. Ars Technica reports Cleary was responsible for running one of the IRC servers for Anon Ops, and he is believed to have also run LulzSec's IRC after they split from Anonymous. Of course, the FBI worked in coordination with Scotland Yard to bring in Ryan Cleary, and they're now doing forensic analysis of all of his materials, all of his stuff. Is this an actual LulzSec member that's been brought in, Nate?
I don't think so. I know that when this news started breaking, which was about 11 o'clock this morning, my time, so I guess about 4 or 5 a.m. your time, there was a lot of speculation that this was going to be someone from LulzSec, but LulzSec was actually pretty quick to come out and say, this guy has nothing to do with us. You know, we're all still here. Which poor guy did they take down? So who knows?
Ars Technica points out that if Cleary did run the IRC channel, the LulzSec IRC channel is offline.
Yeah, but the other thing is, couldn't LulzSec, I don't know, hack into this guy's computer and run this guy's like pretty much like a patsy to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we'll just put it at this guy. He's not even related, but he'll run our IRC and he doesn't even know it.
Also, at the same time, a Pastebin post was put up claiming to be UK census data that LulzSec had hacked. LulzSec denied it and said, look, anybody can copy and paste our logo and put it in a Pastebin post, but if we don't put it in our Twitter feed, it wasn't us. So they're saying we did not hack the UK census data, and the UK census is saying nobody hacked us. We see no evidence that there was any hacking of the UK census data at all.
They also might. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I was about to say a company like LulzSec, an organization like LulzSec, even if one of their members did get taken down, that they would still say, "No, that's not one of us," just to further confuse people.
Right, and why wouldn't somebody else be able to put up the IRC channel for LulzSec?
Right.
I mean, I agree with you, Nate. It's not immediately clear that this person is necessarily a member of those groups. Patrick Rigby on our Reddit forum at technewstoday.reddit.com, our subreddit, put up another post from LulzSec, which they did post about on Twitter, having some rather serious consequences for snitches, calling out a person saying, this person snitched to us, and now we're going to turn over all the information we have about bad things he has done.
Well,
go get him, FBI.
In the Pastebin, they have the person's name, their IRC handles, their phone numbers, Google Voice numbers, addresses, pictures of one guy. So they go, hi, FBI and other law enforcement clowns, LulzSec here with some juicy gossip. So they go on. He tried to snitch on us, therefore we just did your job for you with great ease. So they've just explained pretty much how to get these
Although
guys.
if you're the FBI and the CIA, do you take that at what it's worth?
I think at this point it's difficult, but I mean they've probably taken this guy in, the first guy from the IRC, almost on suspicion and just see what information he's got. I mean, it's not necessarily accusing him of having hacked anything. It's just of connections and involvement from what they've said so far.
Also, you have to assume that the FBI does not want LulzSec to be cherry-picking people to arrest and take to jail.
Yeah.
Here's another person who did a lot of things wrong. We have a bunch of information on that person, and kind of like dictating their job for them.
That'd be something LulzSec. Eventually, they'd come up with the joke, right? They'd be like, "Oh yeah, we wanted to see if the FBI would arrest him."
There's less lulls in this kind of stuff. This is just vengeance.
It could be pretty funny, depending.
And
who
if
that
they're
person
starting
is.
to go, like we mentioned yesterday, they're partnering up with Anonymous. It's getting less lulsy and
Iyaz, I
getting
think
more
you're the
sec.
only person who's still like, this is funny. No, this could get funny.
I have
again.
nothing to do with LulzSec. Don't even make that jump.
I did not infer such a thing.
Lull. They both have
Also
Z's.
the
Z's.
Iyaz.
Just saying. The eye lulls.
Yeah, I don't. I'm
tomorrow I'll be arrested. Thanks, guys.
My lulls have waned.
It was nice working with you. Let's move on to the Nokia story now that we've doomed your career. Speaking at the Nokia Connection event in Singapore, CEO Stephen Elop stated he still thinks Nokia will be able to ship at least one Windows phone by the end of the year. Symbian support and software upgrades were also promised through 2016. And the biggest news, Nokia also introduced the N9, an all-touchscreen smartphone based on MeeGo, and it's got everybody raving. It's sort of like, if you can imagine, in an alternate universe, Nokia hasn't partnered with Microsoft, and this is their big MeeGo unveiling and saying, we're getting behind MeeGo, and we're unveiling the N9.
Alongside Intel standing there going, our operating systems are working. Yeah, but that's not the case. This is a limited edition, probably the only MeeGo phone that's going to exist from Nokia. It's a cool-looking device. I mean, it's supposed to be polycarbonate. It's got a curved screen. It's got some nice customizations to MeeGo.
No button at all.
Well, everyone says it has no buttons, but there's buttons on the side.
Well, no front button. I mean, triple click to
double
unlock
click
it.
to unlock it, and there's a button on the side, and it looks pretty neat. But
and you do the BlackBerry Playbook thing. You swipe to get back to the home screen.
They innovated and copied, and that, I mean, who's going to ever buy this device other than a collector?
That's exactly what it seems like it would be in 20 years. The people who've got the N9 can kind of parade them around, and everyone goes, you did that, huh? All right, buddy.
Nice N9. Nate, I mean, there's some cool stuff going on with this phone. NFC-enabled Bluetooth pairing, so you just knock your Bluetooth headset against it, and it's paired up. You don't have to go into the settings or anything.
Yeah, the problem for Nokia has never really been the hardware, apart from a certain number of resistive touchscreens for a couple of years. The problem's always been the software. And the thing with this is that it takes them so long to get a phone out of the gate sometimes that, they kind of need to release this because they've probably been working on it for quite a long time. And it's like, well, let's get it out there. We need, the next flagship phone. But I agree. I can't see any reason to buy this when you know that it's going to be dead and unsupported before too long. And Windows Phone 7 is probably going to come along in, October, November time. On Nokia phones, so I don't know. It's kind of a weird one.
To me, it seems perfectly fine to buy this. If it looks like a good phone, buy it. We kind of get caught up in this idea that we're buying into a culture when we buy an operating system. This is a good phone, a good operating system. If the price fits and you're in the market for a phone when it comes out, just because MeeGo isn't going to come out with future phones, why shouldn't you buy it?
Because if you're going
to there's no real reason they can't update the OS down the line, and they could say to people, look, do you want Windows Phone on here? Great, here it is, download it. But it's not technically impossible, but it just seems a bit weird, and I agree. There is this thing now of, you're buying into this ecosystem, and I just think that it's really difficult to sell this when everyone's saying, well, it's going to be outdated in 6 months' time, so don't bother. But the hardware looks amazing, though. If they put Windows Phone 7 on it right now, I wouldn't buy one, but I'd be closer to possibly buying one than I am at the moment.
I think buying into the ecosystem is really important, though, because it's not just a single phone experience. I mean, those days are gone. I mean, you're buying apps, you're developing habits. That stuff that you want to be able to upgrade and not lose the stuff that you like. You just expect it to improve. What if you loved the phone more than life itself? I mean, you're just going to be that much more.
Well, MeeGo's not dead. Intel's still developing it, so it has a chance.
I guess.
I'm just thinking that you go through the effort of learning the operating system. Windows Phone's got a certain thing. Yeah, I mean, all these operating systems have their own little quirks, and if you're going to invest time and effort in learning an operating system, you'd think that you want it to exist beyond your one phone. I mean, at that point, you might as well get a dumb feature phone that has an operating system that's not going to be upgraded anyway.
That was supposed to be the promise of Android, is that it's an open source platform that can be put on any phone, and it would make it unnecessary for us to have to switch operating systems, but the fragmentation's been so bad it hasn't really realized that. Finally, Nokia set the date for its annual Nokia World Conference on October 26th in London. It'll be a 2-day conference, 26th and 27th. A lot of people feel like, hey, that would be a perfect time to unveil new Windows phones. It's about the time Mango's going to be out. It's right in time for the fall season. If they're going to put out a Windows phone by the end of the year, there'd be a nice time to unveil it, and maybe a few other models. So we'll keep our eyes on that as well. Take a quick break and thank FreshBooks, the innovator in invoicing. Invoicing is a pain in the ass, but it is so much nicer when you use FreshBooks. If you're a small business owner, consultant, or freelancer, you probably love the part about having your own business. You probably don't love the invoicing part. FreshBooks makes it easy. In fact, I got a post on Twitter today from Matt Johnson. Said, the wife and I are starting a business in Asheville, North Carolina. Told her about FreshBooks. She's raving about it. Loves it. #cake. And of course, he's referring to the fact that if you sign up for FreshBooks and mention that you heard about it on TNT, you do get entered to win a birthday cake. And it doesn't have to be your birthday to win. It's just that kind of a cake. And the cake is very, very tasty. So try it out. FreshBooks allows you to have up to 3 clients for free. A little more money, you get more clients if you like it. So it's a great way to start. Try it out with 3 clients. They will do the invoicing for you. They'll send the invoices. They'll collect the money. They accept 11 payments, get you the money fast, send out the reminders, play the heavy, all that stuff. Try them out. FreshBooks.com. Tell them Tech News Today sent you. Get a cake. Nothing wrong with cake.
No. In fact, it only makes your life better.
You know what else makes your life better?
What?
Final Cut Pro. If you're a video editor.
Unless you're a video editor that really, really likes Final Cut 7 and is really, really used to it because it's really, really different now.
Final Cut Pro X, I think it's 10. Final Cut Pro 10 is now available on the Mac App Store for $300. You can also buy Motion 5 and Compressor 4 for $50 each. There will be no box. No heavy box full of heavy manuals.
Nice.
You can only get it in the Mac
Because nothing
App
was
Store.
heavier than a box of Final Cut Pro, man.
No
Man.
kidding.
Well, I use them as doorstops.
Yes.
Quite
I
often.
use them as free weights.
So no, you don't get. So that benefit's gone.
How much you bench? Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, I'm out of shape.
I
Final
bet-
Cut
Three
Pro is-
Final Cut
I benched
Pros.
2 finals. You?
Well,
I can
if
only
you take
bench-
out DVD Studio Pro. I can.
You know, they got lighter as time went on. So if you can lift older versions, it's actually saying more. No upgrade edition either. If you've got an old version of Final Cut, you're paying $300. Doesn't matter whether you've had one before or not. And no Final Cut Express.
Well, this is what $299 for Final Cut Pro itself. If you want to get Motion and you want to get compressor, those are $50 each.
Yes, I mentioned
So
that.
instead of it being, I'm going back to the upgrade point. Instead of there being an upgrade price of $299 for everything, you have to buy all of these things at once. So that's where I was getting at. If you just let me finish.
Yeah, so
anyway,
$400 for everything.
I've been looking at the boards and seeing how people are complaining about Final Cut Pro X. Sarah, you brought up the point that it does not work with old files of Final Cut Pro, whereas older versions could do that. Jason and I were trying this out. I sent him a Final Cut Pro 6 file, and Final Cut Pro 7 offers an update, so you
Right.
can actually use it.
It can convert it to, kind of bring it up to the current
That
version,
is not the
yeah.
case with Final Cut Pro X. If you did an old Final Cut Pro project, you have to stay in your old Final Cut Pro.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it's crazy.
I don't know.
Because of course Apple could just say, well, you've obviously got the old version then, so now you have 2 choices.
I guess so,
But
but
what
they're appealing to a certain level. I mean, if they're appealing to a certain level of video editor, I mean, the ones that are going to be miffed about that the most are the ones that have been, that are
Who have
seasoned
been using
users.
Final Cut
Maybe
Pro.
like here we have templates on all of our shows, so then we have to go and we have to rebuild every single template just to use that new software. At that point, we have to be convinced that it's worth the upgrade to even spend the time to do that.
It's also so different that people who have the most experience, who will benefit the most, have the biggest learning curve. I mean, if you're just starting from scratch, you take a Final Cut Pro
Absolutely.
class, then some people are going to be better editors than others, but you're just starting from the basics.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to relearn things, then it slows down your process.
Sure.
And again, the not having an Express version all sort of ties into Final Cut Pro X now looks a lot more like iMovie than it ever has before. So Apple is trying to say it's more a software program for everyone, more than ever before. So we don't need all these versions.
Now, I've read some conflicting reports, but it looks like Final Cut Pro X does not overwrite your old Final Cut. So if you have Final Cut Pro 7 or Final Cut Pro 6, you still have it. I think it puts it in or Mac OS 10 puts it in a folder somewhere, kind of hides it away for you. So if you still want to use both, you can.
Well, you better be able to
Well,
do
yeah,
that,
I mean,
or else you're really
a lot
screwed.
of people in the message boards I was looking at, they were freaking out thinking it overwrote Final Cut. It just changes the dock icon. So if your dock icon has Final Cut Pro, your new Final Cut Pro will be there. But your old Final Cut Pro will still be in your applications folder. So look for it there.
Nate, you have an X in your last name. Is it Final Cut Pro X or Final Cut Pro 10?
I've been saying 10, but it's actually Final Cut Pro 8, really. So it's more like an X.
Yeah.
So just to add a
It's
third
Final
confusion.
Cut Pro
True.
8.
I'm gonna say X, and I'm gonna say X from now on. I'm gonna say X tomorrow when I go to see Apple and get a demo of this thing. So I think that I'm gonna go with X and find out.
Do you,
But
also, do you also say OS X? 'Cause
I
think
say
it's-
OS X, yeah.
Well, then,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
You're being
consistent.
consistent, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that there's an interesting trend that that Sarah is pointing out a bit there about what Apple's doing with some of its high-end products and products, we're seeing them really drip down into the consumer level. Aperture went very kind of iPhoto-y in the last update. In Aperture 3, got these sort of faces and things like that, and the price dropped. It's now at £45 on the App Store in the UK, about $80 or something in the US, I think. And now this, and what's next? Probably Logic or something like that.
Well, they kind of did the same thing with Logic at one point, where they kind of stripped away the look and feel of it, and went more in the pretty easier to use Final Cut delivery versus the old version. So they just have a history of doing this with their Pro software.
Also, a new thing is only being able to get it through the Mac App Store. That's going to be true of Lion when it comes out in July as well. Apple Store representatives today said, though, if you're having a problem, you're on dial-up, and you still want to get Lion, come on in to an Apple Store. You can use our Wi-Fi. So if you're on dial-up in a place that doesn't have an Apple Store, then you're just going to have to fend for yourselves. Go to Starbucks or McDonald's or something, find some free Wi-Fi to download it. But they did say Mac owners can use the store's internet connection to download the 4 GB upgrade. Also, minor note, Apple upgraded their Time Capsule and Airport Extremes today. 2 terabyte and 3 terabyte versions of Time Capsule now available for $300 and $500. New Airport Extreme is the same at $179. Now, yesterday, right before the show, we were looking on Reddit, and we saw a Pastebin link for some information about Dropbox user accounts being hacked, but we were trying to find some more information to back it up before we talked about it on the show. We got lots of information now. The story is accounts became unlocked at 1:54 p.m. Pacific Time Sunday when Dropbox introduced a programming change that introduced a bug, meaning anybody could log into any Dropbox account. It didn't matter what password you put in, just put in a username, and you got into Dropbox.
Now, any combination, I think on the Pastebin the guy was talking about, he tried his own password, tried an old password, then he started trying one-letter passwords, and those were working. And this is supposed to affect, what, 1% of Dropbox users?
Well, Dropbox says fewer than 1% of accounts were opened during that time. It affected every single account, but they said fewer than 1% of accounts were opened during that time, and they forced close all of those sessions to cut off access to anyone who authenticated with false credentials during that time, rolled back the changes. But on Wired US, I will point out, Ryan Single points out that if Dropbox allowed you to decrypt and encrypt and hold the encryption key on your end instead of on their central server, this would not have been possible. But Dropbox holds the encryption key for your files. Now, this does allow them to recover your files if you forget your login key, but at the same time, it introduces the possibility of bugs like this. They point out on Wired that Walla and SpiderOak are 2 services that work very similar to Dropbox, but encrypt data on the user's device, not on a central server, so it avoids this sort of issue. And Nate, I know you've been trying out SpiderOak, right?
Yeah, I tried it today. It's kind of a lot heavier than Dropbox. It's kind of like more of a backup and sync tool than just Dropbox. The beauty of Dropbox is that it's just a folder on your computer. But this, I really like it. I've been using them side by side now for sort of the last 24 hours or so, and just having them both sync each other, and I'll see which I prefer. But it's quite nice. It's quite nice. It's I would say check it out.
Walla, which is WUALA. I've installed and was messing about with it. It seems very similar to Dropbox. You do have to install MacFuse in order to make it work as a Finder folder, the way Dropbox does, but you can do that. It's just a little trickier than Dropbox, not quite as clean in the install.
Also, Dropbox has said, listen, we're implementing new security measures to make sure this never happens again. Dropbox is very successful because it is not heavy. It is very easy to use. It integrates really well. A lot of people like it for that reason. So, I mean, I'd be more inclined to not go ahead and change my methods of doing everything and have to worry about encryption on my end if I just felt safe that this wasn't going to happen again to them.
I would say encrypt your own files, whether you encrypt them locally and then put them on Dropbox. I would take that into my own hands, or I would not store anything in Dropbox that I didn't mind other people seeing. Don't put your bank account information up there. I would not put my LastPass or 1Password password files up in Dropbox. It's just not 100% safe at this point. So be careful what you put up there. But yeah, if you're I'm not going to stop using Dropbox. I use it to share MP3 files of podcasts that I'm working on with people. If somebody else sees that file, that file's meant for the public anyway. Not a big deal.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you're going to upload anything, be aware that it could be public at any time.
Yeah.
It seems like. So I guess if you use the cloud, beware.
BMO Harris Private Banking put out a report today saying RIM's current state makes it quite attractive as an acquisition target because it's so low priced. RIM, once worth $83 billion, has fallen more than 80% from its record 3 years ago. It closed yesterday at $25.89 a share. That's 4.7 times the earnings expected next year. That's less than any communications equipment provider, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. And Chief Investment Officer Paul Taylor at BMO Harris says it's not hard to envision a stock price that's somewhere between $40 and $50 a share in an acquisition offer. He suspects Microsoft or Dell might want to pick up RIM.
Doesn't Microsoft have its hands full with Nokia right now? Or I mean,
Yeah.
is it enough of a gamble that they'd want to go in another direction and be somewhat consumer and business, have their hands in both pots? That just seems like too much for Microsoft to take on.
Yeah, that's the theory, is that you'd buy RIM to be your enterprise
Yeah.
version, and Nokia would then be selling your consumer version.
Yeah, but is
This would be a good way in for Dell or IBM, but not Microsoft. Microsoft is so in bed now with the Nokia thing. They effectively acquired Nokia, by getting their OS on the hardware business. So, but the Dell one seems quite possible. Easy way to get into the handset business by buying RIM.
Wait, Microsoft has done weird contradictory things before where like they have like a Zune arm that never talks to the Windows Mobile arm until the point where they're both completely screwed and then they join up. So the idea that they would do, we'll pick this thing up at the same time, not too crazy. They have a boatload of cash. They're always getting a lot of flack for not doing anything too risky.
But it's not like the Nokia deal is just sort of sailing itself. I mean, they're still really trying to make sure that concept even sticks. So,
Right, and they're not giving up other manufacturers either. So they're already skating a line by saying we're going to work really closely with Nokia, but we'll still let Samsung put Windows phones out. We'll still let other manufacturers put Windows phones out. Then they go and they buy another manufacturer. Remember, they already own Danger.
And that worked really well.
And then they go and they buy RIM as well.
that's another collector's item.
I just
That guy in 20 years.
I just don't think that works for Microsoft. But I agree with Nate.
Now, Dell put out the Venue Pro, is that the name of it?
Yep.
That was last year, and they never released any sales numbers, but you have to assume that if it was a smash, they probably would have. So they're clearly interested in getting into this market, and this could give them a big jump ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Dell's bought things like, was it Voodoo, I think? No, sorry, Alienware. They bought Alienware a while ago, and they kind of left it alone and eventually started taking pieces away from there, sort of adding it to their Dell line. So it makes sense for Dell. I would agree with Nate on this one, that Dell is really the smart company, or the company that, if they're smart, will pick this up, because they have really kind of floundered a bit in the tablet space, and the Playbook actually does have decent hardware. Might as well take that and brand it a Dell, and then keep the RIM, the actual hardware around, because it's already has a great name. Even though the stock price has taken a huge hit, people still know BlackBerry. People still know RIM, and they trust it.
Well, the stock market didn't get too excited over this idea. The price only went up to $28.55 over the course of the day after Bloomberg published.
Well, it went
this.
up,
So
right?
it went up $3.
It was down like $7 or $8 last week.
Yeah, so I mean, it went in the right direction. I'll give you that. New iPhone rumors are just like the old iPhone rumors. Boy Genius Report claims to have independently confirmed that the next iPhone will sport a radical new case design, and this part is new, Apple considering holding a special event in August. Previous rumors from last week stated the next-gen iPhone was already in final testing and final prototypes are currently in the field. DigiTimes claims Apple has reduced its iPhone 4 orders in anticipation of a new device in the third quarter of the year. We are at the point where we would normally be about to have a new iPhone, so it already is late compared to previous years. And this is my next. Josh Topolsky has an image up based on what they say was a sketch from a source that shows a more iPod Touch looking iPhone with a thinner profile.
So Iyaz and I were arguing, to put it mildly, before the show started, because I looked at this and said, what is radical and new about this? It's thinner. There's more of that pearl drop type of a shape when you look at it from the side.
Looks like a MacBook Air.
The
Yeah,
home
totally does.
the home button is different. It's more of like that rectangular look than actually a circle.
For gestures, right?
Yep, gesture area.
And yes, the display goes all the way to either side of the screen, but it looks very similar.
It
That looks just like an iPhone.
It looks more like an iPod Touch, okay? We lose that glass back, which was a big deal. They were talking about that. Steve Jobs talking about the iPhone 4 looking like a beautiful camera of some kind. This thing doesn't look a dang thing like a camera. On top of that, what's driving me crazy about this story is that picture is from April. So
that picture is not from April.
Yes, it is. That post is from April. I've seen this thing before, and there's no way I imagined this, because I've seen this before. They have an updated one. If you scroll down to on this image, they have an updated version of this with a better-looking taper using a MacBook Air or something as the base. This is an old story, and I don't understand why Boy Genius Report is saying, oh, yeah, we got some... They're saying they have independent confirmation, pretty much saying that we're not just going to see the internal spec
This post
bump.
is from April 22nd.
Yes. And
You just
June.
said this is an old post.
That is old.
It's
yes.
not that old. Oh, wait, April 22nd.
April,
it's
yes.
June, isn't it? Yeah.
It's still
All
June
right.
now.
Yeah.
So anyway, I still don't quite get why this is such a big deal, other than the fact people were saying that the next iPhone would be iPhone 4S with an internal speed bump or spec bump, and that's all we would get. Same form factor, similar to the iPhone 3G, 3GS kind of thing. So
I still just don't understand how that's radically different. It's different. It is updated. There's nothing radically different about it. I mean, if it was radically different, it would have spikes or...
I think you're thinking
I-
like
I- you know,
Cowabunga
I-
Radical.
I think Iyaz, you're totally right, and we're focusing on the wrong part of this, which is August being an iPhone announcement. Nate, what do you think? I mean, would they do that and still have an iPod announcement in September?
Probably, yeah. I think so. The iPod announcements seem to be getting less and less relevant because the focus really is just now on the iPod Touch, which is really just about iOS 5. So they could combine the two. I mean, the thing is, we know that iOS 5, iCloud, these things are going to be coming out in probably around that sort of time, you know, in the autumn. So it kind of makes sense that they would launch all of these things together. And why not tie that in with a new iPod Touch and, you know, chuck out the Classic and Nano or whatever at the same time? It makes sense. Or, you know, August, September, yeah, I can see that.
I could see them basically saying, look, our summer announcement's going to be a little later. We're going to do it in August. We're still going to do our music announcement in September. We're going to keep those things separate. And next year, we're going to move back to doing it in July. But I've seen a lot of people speculate that they want to do a later iPhone announcement so that it's not as close to the Verizon iPhone announcement as it would have been to kind of basically, you know, keep Verizon users from being upset that they bought the iPhone 4 and then a new one comes out
Yeah,
a
a lot
months
of
later.
people were scared about that in March.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, iPhone 4, but wait, is it going to come up in July and we're going to be stuck with the old model? So
Yeah,
this
I mean,
is
it's still soon afterwards, but a little less insultingly soon, I guess.
You know what, as well, there's a lot of music obviously involved in the iCloud stuff with, you know, iTunes Match and all the streaming things. That kind of ties in quite nicely with all the music side of things as well. So it could be all pulled together.
That's true. That's a good point. They could make it a announce-a-palooza. Nice thing for Apple is they can do announcements whenever they want, and they know scads of people will show up slobbering wherever they make their announcement. And so hopefully they'll be giving out tissues. Time for the news fuse. The FCC is none too thrilled with certain phone carriers. You know who you are. Apparently, it is not unusual for some phone companies to charge its customers for services customers never signed up for. The practice is known as cramming, and FCC Chairman Julius Genachowski has proposed over $11 million in penalties against cramming companies. The following carriers are in the FCC's crosshairs: Cheap to Dial Telephone, Main Street Telephone, Norristown Telephone, and VoiceNet Telephone. You have been warned by the Juliuser.
Speaking of carriers, you know how Sprint has been fairly vocal in its opposition to the whole AT&T T-Mobile merger? Well, AT&T is pretty much saying, shut up, Sprint, we don't give a hoot. According to AT&T General Counsel Wayne Watts, the merger should be approved by March 2012. So it looks like 2012 is shaping up to be a big year.
Yeah.
Merger complete,
Right.
world ends, all good.
Good deal.
Yeah. Okay.
To a lot of people, Facebook is the only site on the internet, and that's why it's been the target of all kinds of malware and scams. A new Facebook app called My Page Keeper will act as your spam and malware protector. It monitors wall posts and news feeds for trouble and will warn you. The app's available right now, and it's free.
According to a Flurry study, the amount of time spent using mobile apps is greater than the time spent on the web, and that's the web on both mobile devices and on PCs at the same time. On average, mobile apps consumed 81 minutes of a US user's day, while the web took up a measly 74 minutes. And the most popular apps, no surprise here, games and social networking.
Thought Scotland Yard was going to come nick you there.
It was awesome to duck the cops and read the news fuse item at the same time.
You are good,
You
Nate.
are good. Round of applause for Nate.
Oh, yes.
The EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, has announced it would no longer accept donations via Bitcoin. In a blog post on the matter, the EFF explains that it's unsure of the legality of Bitcoin and doesn't want its acceptance of Bitcoin to be misconstrued as an endorsement. Any Bitcoin donations made to the EFF in the past will be re-gifted and donated to the Bitcoin Faucet, which just gives out free Bitcoins to people.
You might ask yourself, how did I get here? You might also ask yourself,
Where's my beautiful wife?
and after you ask yourself that, you might still ask yourself, why would a 36-inch monitor cost $36,000?
How did I pay for that?
Is it dipped in gold? This is not my beautiful gold. No.
It's dipped in Bitcoin.
The ISO Nanao DuraVision FTH3601 is capable of displaying 4K footage
What?
thanks to its 4096 by 2160 resolution. Considering that price tag, odds are that this monitor is really meant for industrial applications like air traffic control and for people with a few bucks left over from a trip to the ICANN store.
$1,000 per inch?
It's a good
Same as it ever was? No? No.
Thank goodness, no.
Intel's released a trio of ultra-low voltage Sandy Bridge processors. The three use only 17 watts of power, but pack a lot of processing. The top-of-the-line ULV processor, the Core i7-2677M, reaches speeds of up to 2.9 gigahertz in turbo mode. Expect to see these chips in the Asus UX21 and possibly the MacBook Air.
Nintendo has partnered with Fuji TV to create a new service called SpotPass TV, which will bring 3D video content to the Nintendo 3DS devices. But people of the world, do not get too excited. This content will only be available to Japan. The service has already launched and features contents like sport, museum tours, and magic lessons.
Ooh, 3D
Also-
magic lessons. Needham's Charlie Wolf claims Android is doomed. Using IDC data, Wolf shows Apple's share of the U.S. smartphone market gaining 12.3 percentage points to 29.5% in the March quarter, while Android's share in the U.S. fell from 52.4% to 49.5%. Needham calls this the first sequential loss ever in any region of the world for Android. Wolf thinks it will only get worse for Android when the new iPhones come out on Verizon and AT&T in the fall. However, looking at our old data, Nielsen and ComScore show Android's U.S. market share still growing. So
What
who
is
do you
Charlie
believe?
Wolf smoking?
He's smoking
Android is doomed,
Android.
Mr. Wolf? Really?
I don't know. That's what
Them's fighting words.
I know. Charlie Wolf's going to get flamed. On to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Researchers at RMIT University in Melbourne characterized the ability of piezoelectric thin films to turn mechanical pressure into electricity. In layman's terms, tap stuff and it charges. That's
sounds
pretty
cool.
awesome.
Couldn't that mean the return of resistive screens, so you have to tap harder?
The harder you tap, the more it charges.
So then everything
If
breaks.
you beat your phone, you have better battery life.
You can't use it because it's broken, but it would work if it could.
Their article will be published in the June 21st issue of the leading material science journal, Advanced Functional Materials. I'm sure you're all subscribers.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, so it's been really hard apparently to allow piezoelectric devices to work in normal situations, and they're combining it with thin films makes it possible
So
to
if you were
put
just-
you could put it in a shoe so that when you're walking, it's charging. And you
But
could,
does it need this, like a pulse, or could you just be squeezing?
good question. I don't know. Nate, do
I
you?
wonder if it would charge if it was rumbling. You know, so you could just leave it vibrating all night and it would kind of be perpetually
Leave it on the
charging
washing
itself.
machine.
Well, one of the brilliant examples they used was putting it in a pacemaker so that the blood pressure would actually charge the pacemaker, meaning that the battery would almost never die.
But then you have a phone in your heart.
Well, no, pacemaker, not phone. No, you're not gonna-
Use it. See, I was there with you. I was like, why would you put a phone on your...
Pacemaker, not phone.
Just kidding.
Not everything is a phone.
Just kidding.
That's a whole other app.
Let's move on to the calendar.
The Wi-Fi only Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1 is hitting Sprint on June 24th, and Sprint would love for you to pair that with an Overdrive Pro 4G mobile hotspot or Novotel MiFi, sold separately, of course.
For an additional charge.
Yes. AT&T is going to offer a $50 unlimited version to its GoPhone prepaid plans. That's on June 26th. Microsoft is launching Office 365 on June 28th.
Big press event.
Woo.
Gigabyte's S1080 Windows 7 Slate is now up for U.S. pre-order. It's shipping on July 1st for 650 bones. And DigiTimes is reporting that sources tell them that Intel is going to launch Ivy Bridge in March 2012. Hey, that's the same month as the AT&T T-Mobile merger. Like I said, 2012, big year.
Shaping up to be a big year.
Yeah.
Also, we like getting big but cohesive and intelligent phone calls like this one to 260-TNT Show.
Hey guys, Dave from Delaware. Wanted to congratulate you on your whole week of LulzSec. Gotta agree with you. I think we've kind of played that out as much as it should be. I think there's two things going on. First of all, they do have some legitimate value, but as much as anything, I think you got a bunch of guys with the emotional maturity of a 14-year-old who really get off on hearing their name bandied about. So how about this for a suggestion? I think it's really useful for you folks to report who gets hacked and what information gets lost. Puts a little pressure on the companies, puts information about the hacks in the hands of those whose information might be at risk. But don't go into who did it or why they did it or their statements. Just report that Sony got whacked again, or the CIA, and don't feed the egos of the people who are doing this just because they get off on it. There's a thought for you. Have a good.
All right, that's an interesting proposition. It's sort of the same idea of don't show the idiot who runs on the field in the middle of the game.
Because that's what he wants.
Because that's what he or she wants.
She.
Nate, what do you know, as editor of Wired.co.uk, this is a decision, this is a call you have to make, which is how much publicity do we give versus being journalistically accurate about who's responsible?
I think, generally speaking, my call comes down to if there is something that people should know, then we report it. I think it's really annoying to be giving these guys the attention that they clearly are craving. But at the end of the day, if you're having potential, if your passwords are potentially being leaked or your security is at risk or anything like that, then, it's kind of, which is more important, saving face or actually doing a service to users. So we'll do it, but
I think if you never acknowledge who's behind it, you're only telling part of the story. And it's an important part of the story to know, are these random attacks or are they organized? I think it is important to note that. I'm sympathetic to the caller's instinct to say, I'm probably not as vicious with him about damning the people doing this, but to say, like, you don't want to encourage lookalikes, you don't want to encourage people who might be doing this just to get their name.
But you can't leave out context that is important to a story, especially something that's kind of been ramping up over a few months, as this one has.
As a side note, he seems pretty close. I mean, he's saying 14-year-olds, and this Ryan Cleary guy was 19, who got arrested way back.
That's like half a decade away.
That's pretty close.
That's not that close.
It's a teenager.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Barely.
An adult, actually. 19-year-old's an adult.
There you go.
There's a teen in the name, but it is an adult.
And you're also making a judgment here. When do you say, well, this is actually a respectable organization? Maybe we think Anonymous has got good morals and is hacking in the right way, or maybe we think LulzSec is doing it for the right reasons, and then we give them credit. But you're making a judgment call there as well if you decide who to attribute it to and who you don't. So, yeah. That's a good, thought-provoking voicemail. I like that. 260-TNT Show if you'd like to try your own hand at a thought-provoking voicemail. On to the email, TNT@twit.tv. Aaron wrote in and said, the solution to Kindle spam is simple. Let people return the books for a full refund within, say, 10 minutes of buying. No one is going to be able to read a full novel in that time, and it should be long enough to let people decide if it's a spam book or not. Problem with that is if everybody starts returning books, that raises the cost of the books for Amazon, right?
Well, that's not the way it works. If you accidentally buy a book, you can return it. I've done it by accident. I've tapped to buy it, and you're like, oops.
You can already do this.
Yes, so you can. So if you buy a spam book, just go check Amazon. You can return it.
It seems like forcing someone to pony up a little bit of money before entering something into Amazon store would keep a lot of useless data from being generated.
I think that's a better situation.
Yeah.
Because
this would still be, you're still printing all these spam books.
And there's a lot of people who may be buying these books and they don't realize they're spam. And they just read through the thing, 3 days later and go, oh, that was a pretty crappy book.
It didn't say anything.
Yeah. But then by then it's too late to return.
That's true. All right, next email from Chris says, hey, you guys, I downloaded Atomic today for my iPad, and the New York Post caught on. It no longer works. To that we say, Mercury browser app. Boom.
So unless
Still
the Post
works.
actually puts like every
The New York-
user agent string in there.
The New York Post is pretty much the last to know about all these alternative iPad apps, right? So finally, enough people probably said, hey, the Atomic browser, people are just using that. And they went, oh, we're going to shut that down. Well, you can use Mercury, at least as far as right before we got into the
It's
show
a game
today.
of Matt and Kaus.
That's
if
right.
If they just watch iPad today, they would know that there's so many other browsers other than
That's true.
Safari.
That's true. We did do a alternative browser roundup last year. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's about time for another one.
Yes,
Possibly.
perhaps we will revisit.
Possibly.
Perhaps.
Hey, everybody, don't forget, you can vote on what stories might show up in Tech News Today. We take it into account when we create our lineup. Go to technewstoday.reddit.com, and you can even submit stories there as well. Big thanks again to Patrick Rigby, Orzogan, H.R. Himes, Nearly Down, Mayo, Pete C., PFK99s, RB Island, and lots more people who submitted stuff, Joshua Caleb, into our Reddit. We appreciate your helping us figure out what stuff you like. The more people who take part, the better read we get on what stories you actually want to hear about. And don't forget bricks.twit.tv if you want to buy a brick for the new studio. I just walked over there earlier and saw the new TNT set looking pretty sweet.
We're very excited.
Very
Can't
You mean
wait to
that
get in
TNT
there.
set?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, see those wooden tables there, if you're looking at the video version, in the shape of a kind of a half cross, a Rosicrucian cross. It doesn't have the top
Looks like a biplane.
part. Or a biplane,
From
yeah.
up here.
I believe it's probably got some sort of conspiracy theory elements to its shape. But yeah, that's the Tech News Today set. Nate, you going to come out and visit us?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to come out and visit it. I'm just glad I made it to the TWiT cottage, which was about 3 months ago.
It's
I think.
collectible now.
Yeah, it is a collectible. I touched a brick while I was in there, just to make absolutely sure I'd really connected with the building. So, I'll come and connect with this new building.
Please do. Please connect.
I love connecting with stuff and things.
And let folks know what stuff and things are going on at Wired UK.
Oh, we've got loads of stuff and things going on, but I would say go and check out our podcast, since you guys listen to a podcast. That's at wired.co.uk/podcast, and it's in iTunes as well. It's getting some pretty good reviews, so it'd be great to get some of you guys to check it out. And follow me on Twitter, obviously, at Nate Lanxon.
LANXON. Thanks, everybody, for watching. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. Email us, TNT@twit.tv, or give us a call, as I've mentioned before. The phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We thank you for watching and hope you'll watch again tomorrow. And please tell your friends to watch again tomorrow. The more people, the better. The show gets better the more people watch it. It's a proven scientific fact. So we'll see you tomorrow, then. Now it looks like a plane.